There's nothing like feeling comfortable enough to ask another woman who's been in the same situation, how do I do this? And saying, I got you. Okay, give me a second and I'll get back to you. And you get back to that person. They're like, oh my God, this worked out. Thank you so much. And it just gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling, because you don't want any woman to get out of the military and feel like she's just dropped down that rabbit hole. That's an awful feeling. It sucks. I don't want any woman to have to go through that.
Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast, where we are reimagining and redefining what it means to be in midlife, where we are gathering energy, momentum, and excitement for our next chapter via candid conversations with other midlifers about their own pivots, pitfalls, and triumphs. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. I am so thrilled to be able to introduce you to today's guest, the first guest of season 2. She's a total rock star and has had to reinvent herself a few times over. Her name is Kat Corchado. Kat joined the Air Force as a young single mother, and much to her surprise, ended up serving a full 20 years. She retired when she was 42 years old and found herself adrift and unprepared for the transition to civilian life. She ended up becoming a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor in her 40s. She's 64 now and still teaching Pilates, but that's just part of her story. Over the years, Kat found that she was missing her connection to other military women. So she began working with the Women's Veteran Network, which is a nationwide network of peer support groups specifically for women veterans. A little over a year ago, Kat saw a need to be able to reach more women veterans with information and inspiration. So, at the age of 63, she decided to launch a podcast called Sisters in Service, where she helps other women veterans make the transition from military to civilian life. I wanted to start this season off with Kat's story because the work she's doing is so important. I usually avoid talking about current events in the podcast because I want the topics we talk about to be something you can go back to at any time. But like so many people, I was terribly saddened at the loss of our 13 service members at the airport bombing in Kabul. I heard the news while I had the privilege to be on vacation visiting my parents in Arizona, and it struck me how lucky I am that there are men and women serving in the military so that I can lead my normal civilian life. I had already interviewed Kat, so I immediately knew that I wanted to open the season with her story. I didn't think about it then, but this episode also happens to come out on the week of the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attack on the World Trade Center in 2001. I remember that day vividly, as I'm sure you do. I was living in New York City and working close to Grand Central Station that day, wondering if there might be another attack. It was pretty scary. That day launched us on the path to 20 years of war in Afghanistan. And I'm dedicating this episode to all the men and women that have served to help keep us safe from another terrorist attack. During our conversation, I learned from Kat that less than 1% of our U.S. population serves in the military. I knew it was low, but I didn't know it was that low. And that means that the majority of us really don't understand the ins and outs of the many challenges facing veterans as they transition to civilian life. I don't know about you, but I don't know many veterans. And so I have a very limited understanding of their lives. That's why I think the impact of her podcast has huge potential. I hope that many of you will give it a listen. But for now, let's jump right in so you can hear Kat's story. So without further ado, here's Kat Corchado. All right, so we'll start again.
Rewind.
Take 2. All right. Oh my goodness. We'll just start laughing. Hey, right.
They're like, what kind of podcast is this? The music starts. We're like giggling and laughing.
I'm keeping this. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been a great start so far.
Take two, right? Oh, too funny. I love to actually love to include bloopers sometimes, so that people know that, we all make mistakes.
We make mistakes.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not perfect. We mess up all the time,
Absolutely.
We just edit it out.
Exactly. Whew, get all that out of the way. Oh my gosh. Kat, I'm so happy you're here with me today. And as I said in take one, I'm so happy that you're here, and that I like to say where I met people, and you and I met through a room for podcasters called that's hosted by the club Real Talk Podcasting. And all those guys are just incredible that run that room. It's so, I love going into that room. It just like, you never know if they're actually going to be talking about podcasting or they're going to be talking about mustaches.
Oh, it'll go off on a tangent. People come into the room, they're like, what did I just drop into? But they're awesome people. I've been in that room since January, and I told them, today I said, it feels like you guys are my extended family, that I've never met in person.
Right. Oh,
but it's awesome.
Isn't it weird? Like, you started your podcast this year also? Is that right? Or when did you start your podcast?
I started mine in October last year.
Okay, right. You were a little bit pre-COVID. So, because I think a lot of us in that room had started during COVID, like me. And have you found, since you started your podcast, or especially since COVID, maybe, that you've made more virtual friends than real friends?
I have. It's like I'm in Clubhouse. I mean, I found more, I was going to say clients, they're not clients, but people from my podcast from Clubhouse, because you get to hear them speak.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you don't want someone on your podcast and they can't talk.
Right.
They give you those one-word answers. How are you doing? Fine. How's your week? Okay. And you're like, oh, this is going to be a long interview. But, even with Zoom, I found that, people say, oh, I have Zoom fatigue. I love meeting and talking to people, whether it's in person, on Zoom, in Clubhouse. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the one-on-one part of it. And I'm actually really surprised. So funny. I just have to, my audience is probably laughing right now. They're like, she's talking about Clubhouse again.
I do too. Oh, guess what? I was like, when I have my guests, I'm like, oh, and by the way, I met them on Clubhouse, and I'm not getting paid by Clubhouse, by the way.
Right. They're not a sponsor. There's no kickback.
Right.
I'm really surprised that I enjoy Clubhouse, because I'm really more of a one-on-one conversation kind of person. And that's like a room full of, it's like the equivalent of being at a cocktail party in a way, except that there's like structure to the conversation somehow. And that, I don't know. I love it. And like you said, you instantly know when you hear somebody's voice, if you're connecting with them, or at least after a bit, if you've been in rooms together a while, and then all of a sudden they might say something that blows your mind, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that about you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think I was trying to explain Clubhouse to someone who had just started Clubhouse or haven't been on or something. And I said, it's kind of like when you go to a conference, you have all these rooms, and there's a particular speaker or subject, and you go in, you sit down, and you listen to that person or several people talk. It's kind of like that, only it's not in person. It's, on Clubhouse, you get to hear the people speak, and they drop all these nuggets of information depending on what your interest is. And I have found it invaluable, actually. I've learned so much.
And I love that the thing I love about it over Zoom is that there is no camera, and I can be in my jammies, and I can be walking around my dirty house. It doesn't matter.
Let me clean up. I'm going to be on Zoom. Let me clean up. But I think the other thing too is that sometimes when people know you, and, sometimes you go into a room and you just want to listen, and they're like, oh, come up on stage and say hi. And I'm like, no, I just want to listen.
I just want to listen today. Yes, I'm driving. I'm not getting, oh my goodness, too funny. Oh, wow. We really went on a tangent.
We did.
We did. Oh my goodness. So what I love what you're doing with your podcast, first of all.
Thank you.
I want you to speak to your mission with what you're doing with that. I was just listening to one of your episodes this morning and I was like, yeah, this is special.
Well, thank you. It came about, it was an idea. And please don't ask me why podcast, because my husband has been listening to podcasts before I even knew what a podcast was. And all of a sudden this idea came, but I was so busy. I was like, I don't have time. When am I going to do this? And then bam, COVID hit. And I thought, and either I read something or someone said, what will you have accomplished during COVID? What can you say you accomplished? And I thought, now's the time to do this. So I started doing this. And it was almost like I was on this mission. I knew exactly what I wanted the podcast to be about, how I wanted it to flow, all of this stuff. And that's not me. So I'm like, how do I do this? And how do I do this? But it's called Sisters in Service. And the reason that I was focusing at the time on women was because, we kind of get left behind in the dust. We get out of the military, we kind of get left behind. And what I mean by that is that when men get out of the military, regardless of whether they have a family or not, they're still able to network. They're able to go talk to other men and do all this networking. Women, whether they get out, they've been wearing the uniform, but then when they take the uniform off, they're, as my mother calls it, chief cook and bottle washer. You're doing all the things. You're being the mom, you're doing the cooking, you're doing the washing, you're making all the schedules. And then you get out of the military and you're still doing that. So who has time to network? And then when you do have time to network, you go to a veteran networking event and 95% of the people there are men and you feel isolated. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, this might be a way to bring women together where we can talk about things that are affecting them in the service and out of service and have fun doing it. If I didn't have fun podcasting, I wouldn't be doing it. So I'm totally myself. We're laughing, giggling, having a fun time like we're doing today. Mm-hmm. But it's for all women, and I started, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I started calling myself the Voice Connecting Women Veterans, because that's what I feel I'm doing.
Oh, that's great.
Is that we're connecting women veterans. You should
say that. That's good. That's good. The voice, I love it. The Voice Connecting Women Veterans. And we should back up a little bit to let people know your credentials. Like, you served for how long?
I served for 20 years, but I was also born into the military. So my dad was already in the Air Force when I was born. Mm-hmm. And when I decided to come into the military, I almost went in the Navy, because their uniforms are awesome. Their uniforms are gorgeous. And my recruiter said, no, stay in your lane. I said, okay, I'll go in the Air Force. So I did 20 years. And got out, and I thought that I was ready. I'm ready to be a civilian, and I fell down this rabbit hole, and I wasn't sure why, because when I got out, it was 21 years ago, and there wasn't, Facebook groups, and there wasn't Clubhouse, and there weren't all these organizations that want to help veterans. Mm-hmm. And so you feel isolated. Even though my husband's a veteran, I felt like he didn't understand what I was going through. And so I pretty much kept it to myself. I did get my feet on the ground, but I still felt isolated. Like, where are my sister veterans? Where are they? Because we don't stand up and say, hey, over here. We don't talk about it unless you happen to say something and I'll look at you and go, are you military? And then you say, oh yeah, I was in the Army. I was in it. And I was like, and then we start chatting. Mm-hmm. And so in 2017, I found this network of women called Woven, the Women Veterans Network. And I didn't know what it was. And I thought, this is exactly what I was looking for. So it was a panel of women. There were about 20 of us, and it was supposed to last an hour. It ended up, lasting 2 hours because we're laughing and giggling and talking. And I thought, this is what I'm missing. Mm. And so I started off as a peer leader in Woven, and I'm now a national consultant. But it was during that time that I thought, wow, I thought Woven should have a podcast. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do my own podcast. Mm-hmm. And so that's how that all started. So yeah, that's my story.
So you've been out, not only did you serve in the military for 20 years, but did I hear you right in saying you've been out for 20 years?
I've been out for 21 years, actually.
21 years. Oh my goodness. How old were you when you went into the military?
I was 15. No, I'm
Because
joking.
you look like you're in your 30s, lady.
Oh,
So,
bless you. Thank you so much. I actually went in late. Okay. I'm always a late bloomer. So
uh-huh.
everyone else, they get out of high school, they go right in at 18. I went in at 22,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a single parent at the time. And it was just one of those, let me just try the military. I needed something badly at that point in my life. And the military was there. And so, I'm not very good at math. And I thought, I'll wait until my son goes to college. And then when he went to college, I realized I only had 5 years left until my retirement, and I thought, okay, I might as well stay. Actually, no, that's not what I thought. I called my father, who had retired already, and they had a 15-year retirement. And I said, Dad, guess what? I said, they have a 15-year That's as far as I got. I couldn't even get retirement out. And he goes, nope. I said, retirement. He goes, nope. He said, stay in and get your full pension. Now, that's not what I wanted to hear, but he'd already done it. So I thought, okay, I'll do it. And I did. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, at that point, right? Were you just dying to be done at that point though? That's tough, right?
Well, when you've done something for 20 years, you're just ready to go. You're like, okay, done with this. Let's keep it moving. And I thought being a civilian would just be, it's like on that other side of the fence. You're like, I want to be over there, and it was so different than what I had thought it was going to be. It was so different.
So you were 42 when
Yes.
you left. And
Yes.
so then what did you do? I know that the first time we spoke, you said that you felt a little adrift when you got out.
I did, when you've done anything. So if you talk to anyone, they say, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. You think they're an expert on what it is they've been doing. Okay. At least somewhat of an expert. So I was in communications. I was a project manager in the military. So I started applying for project management jobs. I think LinkedIn was around that time. I'm not sure. There's been some controversy. And so, you apply for all these jobs and they will come back and say, it's great, but you don't have a degree. And I said, but I've been doing this for 20 years. What are you talking about? And it was very defeating. Now, at the same time that I was in the military, I was also doing fitness as a part-time job, just something off the cuff. And so I pivoted. That was my first pivot. Well, no, probably my second. My first pivot was going in the military. And I thought, well, let me, I talked to my husband. I said, I really want to try my hand at fitness, see if I can do this. And he's always been super supportive. He goes, okay. And it worked. And it was what I wanted. And it felt good at the time. And so that's where I decided to just do fitness. And it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And Pilates is your specialty, right? Was it always or?
Oh, no. I started back. Okay. This how old I am, you guys. I started off when there was just high impact and low impact classes. You remember those with the leotards?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Are you old enough to remember those?
Oh my goodness. I can tell you, I think I went to, what was it? Jane Fonda was right. So back in the 80s, I think I tried going to an aerobics class with my mom and, I was somewhere between 18 and 20 years old. I'm going to guess I was in pretty good shape, and I thought I was going to throw up at the end of that class. I would say it was high impact. My face was beet red. I was dripping. I was literally nauseous. I was like, this is not for me.
Well, I was always the person that, that annoying person that would be right in front, right behind the instructor doing everything just like me. That was me. I was that annoying person.
I was the one in back that looked like Lucille Ball. Seriously, that's me. And funny enough, I started off in the theater, so I took some dance classes. I can sing, but I'm not a singer. I am
Mhm.
certainly not a dancer. And there were occasional shows that would come up and you'd have to learn a dance routine. I am just like, I tried taking tap once. That's when I really felt like Lucille Ball. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm
You're like,
just like
wait, where are
I'm
we
like a
going? What are
horse.
we
What am
doing?
I doing here?
I know. It's
But
hard.
you
But I
were the
think
one that I would watch in the front and think, damn her.
what was even harder is our instructor was actually she was in the military. She was stationed at the base and she was getting ready to leave. And she turned, she said, would you mind taking over this class? And I said, sure. Now, keep in mind, this was before microphones.
Oh.
And
Mhm.
luckily, when I was in high school, I was a cheerleader and our cheer instructor was also a singer and she would teach us how to cheer from our diaphragm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever exercised and tried to teach a class at the same time, I was sucking wind like you would not believe.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, keep going.
I love it. By the way, she's waving her hand right now. Like, you wave somebody on. Go
I'm
on
bent
without
over,
me.
hands on my knees.
Go without me.
So it was, and as times changed and, it was step aerobics. And then shortly after step aerobics, I got into personal training. And then I was in Boston and we had like 50 trainers and I really wanted to stand out as a personal trainer and no one was doing personal training and Pilates. And so Pilates came to our club and needless to say, I didn't understand what Pilates was because I'm a trainer, strong. I can knock this out the block. And I went in there and my instructor kicked my butt. And I thought, no. And I started taking Pilates and I really, really liked it. But at the time you had to go to New York to be an instructor and to learn. You had to stay there. Now if you have a family, you've got bills to pay. No one has that kind of time.
Right.
And they brought the program to Boston. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And that's how I got into Pilates.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. It's, you just got to follow where the path goes, right? And see where you're interested in moving from one thing to another. So cool. So you started Pilates. So did you start, you were teaching in the military, you were doing some fitness in the military.
Right.
And were you actually teaching on the side? Cause was it like a little side gig kind of thing?
Yes, it was, so being a single parent, when they say part-time job, a part-time job is about 20 hours a week or something like that. I didn't have that kind of time, but teaching a class, I could get off work, change, go to the club, do 1 or 2 classes, and come home in time for my son to come home and I could, cook dinner, whatever. And I didn't have to be away from him. That's what I didn't want. And so it just worked out. It was it was easy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always a way. There's always a way to figure stuff out. I mean, it's like, okay, that's not going to work.
Right.
Let's try this other thing.
Nope, that's not working. Let's do something else.
Right.
But it happened to work. And, you get paid, you do 1 or 2 hours of your time and you come home and it was easy.
Yeah. Man, oh man. So I'm sitting here, like you said a minute ago, you said you aren't good at math. I'm not so good at math either, but I'm doing the math in my head and I'm thinking, are you 62 or 63?
I just turned 64.
You look amazing. And are you still teaching Pilates? Is that still a thing for you?
Yes, I'm still teaching Pilates. I still work out. I've just really embraced the whole fitness thing because, I've seen what not being fit can do to your body. And, I want to be one of those feisty 90-year-old women, they say, can I help you cross the street? And I'm like, hit them over the head with the cane and I got this, leave me alone,
Back off. What do you think? I totally want to high five you through the camera right now. Yes. I want to be that feisty 90-year-old too.
Yeah. But what I realize is that Pilates, so when I first started Pilates, and you think, oh, this is new, you think about the money you can make. But then I was in New York and I was watching this woman do this workout on the reformer. For those of you that know a little bit about Pilates, and her instructor was basically just walking around the reformer. Every now and then she'd say something. And I realized at that point that she was in her 60s. And I thought, holy crap, I can do this for years. You know, when I no longer want to do the hard hitting, you know, weight training and all that other stuff, I can still do Pilates.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll help keep me healthy, keep my mind healthy, keep my body healthy. And I feel like I've worked out. So that was my aha moment there. And when I was watching her work out, and not only was she doing it, she was doing it perfectly.
Mm.
And I was highly impressed. And I thought, okay, I get it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
You keep it moving and right. You keep these
You keep
body
you
parts
keep
moving,
moving,
and they keep moving, and they
and
don't.
you just try to keep it healthy. You know, I'm just trying to be, my motto has always been, I want to be better at 64 than I was at 63 health wise.
I like that.
You know,
Yeah.
and so I'm always striving to be just a little bit better. You know, of course, you know, as you get older, your body reminds you, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently.
Right.
Like, hello, you can't do this anymore. Remember, this doesn't feel good. But for the most part of me, I'm pretty much can do, you know what, I've been able to do everything I want to do without any pain or discomfort. So
Yeah.
I feel blessed about that.
Yeah. And so I know that the last time we talked, you mentioned that you got to a point where you were feeling stuck, and that meditation also was a key for you to get through that. When would you tell me a little bit more about the surrounding information around that? Where were you?
Well, you know, when you get into a rut and every day seems like that movie Groundhog Day, you know, you get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat dinner, you go to sleep, and you rinse and repeat. And I felt stuck. I just felt like I wasn't moving forward. And I started not sleeping well, and I started just meditating. And so I was always told that, you know, when you meditate, you know, you want all the thoughts out of your head. Well, it's your brain. Okay. Your brain can't stop thinking. If your brain stops thinking, that means that you're pretty much not alive. Okay.
Right.
And so someone said, you know, it's almost like when you see an advertisement on a truck, you know, you see an advert on a truck and, you know, it just passes by you, you know, and you forget about it. And so when you meditate, you get a thought and it passes by and you're like, thank you for showing me that. And I keep meditating, but it really helped center me. You know, I found that I was working better. I wasn't as stressed out. And it just felt good to do that. And I started doing it longer and longer. Now, you don't have to do it for an hour. I would do it. I think I did one that was I think it was a 10-minute meditation, and it worked wonders. It was
It's
great.
amazing what even 5 or 10 minutes will do. Amazing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it slows down your breathing, and you just feel this sense of calm that you're ready for your day. And you can go into it with this sense of, okay, I got this.
Yeah.
Rather than waking up and the alarm clock's off and it's rush, 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 and you're going around, and then you come home and you're exhausted all the time. And it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you, yeah, I mean, meditation was a huge thing for me once I took it on as a commitment to do it every day.
Yes.
I think I probably started dabbling with it probably about the time I was 30. And I always thought, oh, okay, I'm going to meditate now. And like you said, it's that whole thought of you hear what you think is the way to meditate. And it's like, you know, empty your mind. Well, you can't empty your mind. And two, just sitting was you know, how do you sit for so long? You know, I would think at the time I was like, well, you have to do 20 minutes, you have to do 30 minutes, whatever. And so I never did it regularly, and it would come and go. And I always knew that it felt great when I did it.
When you did it. Yes.
Right. But it was the same as exercise for my whole, like my 40s was like every time I'd exercise, you know, I'd get a start on it and then I would injure myself somehow. I had bad back. I'd somehow throw my back out, whatever. And then instead of finding ways around the injuries, I would go completely off the rails and lose my way for weeks at a time and then try to come back at it again, you know?
Yeah.
And now I find that, yeah, maybe I still might get an injury exercising, but now I have like when I turned about 48, I was like, couldn't focus, was just having a hard time, low energy and all that stuff. And I, thought I started a morning routine based on a lot of stuff that I heard. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do the morning routine. I'm just going to try it for a month. Let's just see what happens. I'm going to exercise in some way. For me, it's yoga. I love yoga, or light weights and floor exercises and walking and stuff like that. I was like, some way, somehow, I'm going to move my body every day.
Yes.
No matter what. And I'm going to meditate every day, no matter what. And I realize now that even if it's a day where you're against it, 5 minutes of meditation is better than nothing.
Or even just breathing,
right?
Like just being still and just breathing, deep inhales and exhales can just calm you to a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready. And what I've heard a lot of people say, oh yeah, I did meditation once and it didn't work. It's something you have to do. Put it on your schedule. Just like you put your doctor's appointments, your kids' appointments, your dog's vet appointments, put it on your calendar. It's on my calendar, meditation.
Yeah.
And I do it. And sometimes I can't do 30 minutes. Maybe I can do 15, maybe I can do 10, maybe I can do 5 and just breathe. When I first started, I would get to work because I had to go to work early. I'd have 6 a.m. clients and I would be in my car and I would meditate. I had this guided meditation and I would just do it right in my car.
Yep. Yeah. And, the whole idea of like, it's a practice. It's not like one and done.
Right.
Right. And there's going to be there's days that I sit down to meditate and I'm passing judgment on how my meditation's going, right? Or it's like, well, today was a crappy meditation day. And, one day I had an angry meditation day. I was sitting there meditating and I'm angry, I'm like, well, wow. But even so, like, I know that I took that time for myself. It's the commitment to doing it almost that is like, okay, so even it's like, what is it? A bad day fishing is still a good day with that old saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think also too, this like the more you do it, the more your body says, oh, we're meditating, and your body and your mind and your body start to relax.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. Where before it would take a little bit of time, before I got into it. Now it's like, I sit down. I even tell my husband, I close the door and I said, I'm meditating. He's like, okay. And he'll leave me alone.
Yeah.
And I close the door. It's quiet, and I meditate and I always feel better. Some days are better than others, but it's still giving your body that time to just be.
Yeah.
You don't have to think, you don't have to do, you're just there.
Yeah.
And it's a nice feeling. It's a really nice feeling.
Lifesaver for me, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
How old were you when you started doing the regular practice of it?
I think I started doing it about maybe 2.5 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. So it's pretty new.
So
for
it's
you
pretty new for me, but I realize that if I miss it, and I try not to miss it, but you still have those days, I know I've missed it. My body knows. Like, excuse me, you didn't meditate, know?
Yeah.
And I feel differently than when I do meditate. And I just feel like everything just it's so weird. It's just weird. You feel like things flow after you meditate. And then when you don't meditate, it's like you're piecemealing stuff together and it feels harder for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, at least to me.
And so you then that kind of all ties into the beginning of your podcast too, right? We have a very similar journey in this way. That's funny.
Yes. Yeah. I've become very more aware of my gut instinct, and we as women have it. Sometimes we just don't listen to it. And as I've gotten older, I realized that when something's right for me, it's an instant gut. Yes, go for it. When something doesn't feel right, my gut goes, nope, that's a hard no. Nope, I don't want that. And it was just this voice saying, do the podcast. You got to do the podcast. Finally, I just said, okay. And the hardest thing for me to do was that first episode where you press the that button to put it out to everybody. And I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? Nobody will listen to it. Okay.
Right.
But I'm having such a ball doing it. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
doing it. So yeah, I think I found my thing, my other
Yeah.
thing.
Your other thing. It's so cool. I just want people to just keep exploring whatever their thing is, just, um, I guess that's why I do this podcast, is just to say, hey, if you're feeling like you're in Groundhog Day, you know, and that's ideal, maybe it's worse. Maybe it's like you're in, you're in you're feeling awful, like, right? You
Right.
could be feeling just blah and meh. And
Mhm.
as far as I'm concerned, life is too darn short to be
Short.
feeling meh or bad.
Exactly.
And the
Yeah.
only reason we continue to allow ourselves to stay in a bad situation is just because of the unknown of stepping out of the frying pan and into the fire, right? If things are
Right.
going bad, or the meh is really just comfortable,
Right.
right?
And they're afraid to
Were
step
you
out.
uncomfortable stepping into doing podcasting? Was that
Yeah, but it was exciting too.
right?
It
Yeah.
was, I'm one of those people that, I need a system. I need to know. So I took this course, you know, and it took me step by step, everything I needed from the equipment to the platforms, all this other stuff. So when I got to that point, I felt like I was ready.
Mhm.
Now, some people they don't know if they can swim, but they're going to learn as they jump into the deep end. That's not me. I'm going to get in the kiddie pool and walk to each part of the pool until I'm
Yes.
like, okay, let me see if I'm ready for this.
Uh-huh.
And so when I pushed that button, I felt good. I felt ready. And I just felt as though this, I thought, okay, and then they started talking about the pod fade, if you've gone 7 episodes and then, and I thought, and I was always, I think at that time, when I heard about that, I was always like 14 or 15 episodes in. I'm like, well, I guess I'm good. I'm way past that. But I keep, telling myself, there are times when you're like, oh, I have to do an interview. And then after the interview, you feel so alive. That person, you're like, oh my God, I love podcasting. And it just reaffirms it all over again.
Yeah.
So it's just been a lot of fun. A lot of
Yeah.
fun.
That is awesome. Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm with you. And the pod fade did not hit me for a long time. I mean, I think if anything, as I've come upon the year marker, that's been kind of like, whew, it really is a marathon to
Yes,
produce
it is.
a podcast. There's there's a lot that goes into it, right? It's not just hitting the record
It's a
button and then
labor of
posting
love.
something. It's like it's all the moving pieces and making sure you
Yeah.
got show notes and all the things,
Yeah, it's funny when I hear people talk and they're like, oh, the analytics and the this and the that. And I'm like, okay, I'm not looking at, and I rarely look at my numbers on my downloads. Okay.
Mhm.
Every now and then I'll look and I'll go, oh crap, look at that. And then I
Nice.
leave it alone because I
Uh-huh.
don't want to get into that, you know, habit of, measuring myself at each
Mm.
episode. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I was looking at Facebook and someone had put on there that they did their first episode and said, I got 1,000 downloads. And I thought, that's really great, but that's a lot of pressure. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because if it drops below 1,000 on your second one, now you feel the pressure to get it back up. So I started very, very small. And the instructor I had on my course said, he goes, look, as long as if it's one person that downloaded that episode, you're up above what you were before. He goes, it's a gradual climb. As long as you're making the climb up, feel like you're doing it. You're taking
Yeah.
care of it.
Yeah. What do you mind if I ask what course you took? You seem like
It
you're
it
happy
was
with
by
it.
Pat Flynn.
Oh
It
yeah. He's
yeah.
great.
I
He's
can't
great.
remember. Yeah, but he takes you from A to Z all the way
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
And
He's
I just felt
tremendous.
very
And
prepared.
I did not take a course. I also had to learn all the things, right? I ended up doing it the stupid hard way and just Googling and finding YouTube videos. But
Yeah.
Pat Flynn's videos were just his free content
Oh,
was
yes.
very helpful. I learned so much from him. And so if anybody's what is it? He's got a few podcasts, so now I'm having trouble remembering, but I'll try to put it in the show
Mhm.
notes if anybody is interested in producing a podcast or having a small business, having a business and learning how to promote it. I mean, he's just so generous.
He is.
With
And I
his
can tell you that
information.
if you take any of his courses, that he has what's called office hours that he
Mhm.
holds every week from like 2:30 Eastern time to 4:30. And you can ask him any question,
Wow.
hey, I want to do this. What do you think of this? And he'll, and I mean, I think that's very generous of him,
Yeah.
so thank you, Pat Flynn, just saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll definitely put that in the show notes for anybody who has any interest in producing a podcast. What have you learned about yourself? Like, do you think that if this technology had been available to us back in the day when we were younger women, is this something that you would have done, do you think? Is this something that at this stage of your life, it happens to be a really good match for who you are and where you are in your life? And it, here it is. It's the nice thing about podcasting is the low barrier to entry. If,
Yes.
Once you get all the tech blah blah figured out, there's no
Right.
gatekeepers keeping you from producing a podcast and putting it out in the world and trying to promote it yourself and do that. That's what I love about this is it's a
Yes.
very DIY, like just do it. If you're interested
Yes.
at all in something, there's a bajillion podcasts out there. They might be doing the same thing you're doing, but if you have a passion to do it, then just it's available to you. Do it.
Just do
Right?
it. Right.
What do
I
you think?
think
Do you think it would have matched up with your younger self?
no.
No?
No, I don't think so.
Interesting.
I think timing has always been a big deal for me. And what I mean by that is things happen in your life at a certain time and you don't realize it at the moment, but you look back and you go, whoa, if I had just gone the other way with that, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there's always this timing thing. And what's funny is my husband has always said, he goes, you have such a great voice. He goes, you would be great on
Mhm.
radio. And I was like,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
And I remember when I did my first podcast, your introduction, and he listened to it and he goes, it's great. He goes, I told you I had a great voice. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh.
But I think that podcasting happened for me exactly when it was supposed to happen,
Mhm.
and it's just like when my husband and I, we talk about, oh, why didn't I meet you back when, and I said, we weren't ready for each other then.
Mhm.
We met at the exact point in time when we were supposed to meet. So
Yeah.
it podcasting happened at the exact point in my life that I needed it to happen. And so I could change my life. I think podcasting has changed my life. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And do you think that the skills that you have learned your whole life, like being in the military, I mean, clearly that affected your topic, right? That gave you the whole background for that. But in the sense of the actual doing of a podcast, regardless of subject, do you feel like your background with the exercise with the military or any of it, do those things apply in helping you get this thing done?
Absolutely. In the military, you're given systems. You do this, then you do this. It's a system, right? I'm a systems girl. You show me the steps, I can follow the steps and get it done. So all of it from the military to, teaching aerobics, learning Pilates, they were all systems. And this is a system too. You learn how to do it and then you do it. So I think it was set up for me that way, that, if they said, no, just go do it, I would be like, yeah, no, never mind. But if there's a system and it shows me how to do it, it was perfect.
There you
It was
go.
perfect.
And so taking the class with Pat Flynn was the perfect way for him to show you a system to step into.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was perfect for me.
And do you feel like that there's anything else? Oh, I had a direction I was going to go with this question. Now it's poof, it's gone out of my
I
head.
hate when that
I
happens.
hate when that happens. Um, do
It'll
you,
come back.
yeah. Oh, where was I going with it? I guess I was just wondering how Yeah, it's gone. So I'm gonna ask you another question that I have,
Okay.
which is, what have you learned about yourself in doing the podcast?
Oh, good question. What have I learned about myself? That if I put my mind to something, I can do it. And I know that sounds weird. Okay. So, like, a lot of people, it's like, oh, you went in the military, you did this, but you don't know when it's on purpose, purposefully doing something, that this proved to me that, I can do this. And podcasting has taught me, that I can be a business person, because sometimes you think, yeah, I can do this. And then it gets hard. And you're like, never mind. But through podcasting, because my husband said, he goes, I'm so proud of what you've done. And I didn't really think it was that big of a deal because it was something that I was passionate about. And I find when I am passionate about something, it doesn't feel like it's a job or it's work. It's something that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And being passionate about women veterans and about being a veteran is something that I'm passionate about. And so I've learned that if I'm passionate about something, I will carry it through to the end. I don't care how long it takes.
Yeah.
So, I may never get paid for my podcast, and that's okay, but I'll do it anyway because that's how passionate I am.
Yeah.
However, if some organization would like to give me money,
Hold on here. Just saying.
we could talk later.
So I have another question on the flip side of that, which is there anything that you wish you had known when you were stepping into doing this?
No, I learned everything. Well, I always tell people the podcasting part was easy. The business part of podcasting is what's hard.
Yeah.
The social media, how to do it, when to do it, what to post, how to post.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, I've used my gut instinct for a lot of things. They'll say, oh, post every day and post on different things and repurpose stuff. To me, I will post something and, it's when I feel like it's the right time to do it. So I'm not posting every day, but I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you I'm posting about 3 to 4 times a week,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it feels like the right thing for me. Just like my podcast is twice a month because it feels right for me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, maybe it'll go weekly, maybe not. I feel like it's a good pace for me right now.
Yeah.
So, when my gut says, you know what, let's go weekly. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I do love about podcasting that we have so much autonomy on how, you can choose how long you want it to be, how often you want to do it. I mean, there's people who do podcasts every stinking day. I don't know how they do that.
I don't
That's
know
so
how they're
crazy.
doing that.
But and I always feel like, oh, should I shorten the podcast because it runs about an hour? I'm like, is that too long for people? But try as I might, I'm a talker. And and the people I get on are talkers.
Yeah,
And,
there you go.
before you know
And
it, we've
people are
got
very drawn to that, and so people say, oh, well, if your subject's great and your guest is great, and I said, yeah, but what about if people are just attracted to you as far as your voice? They like to hear, my goofy laugh, or they like to, when I laugh at myself because I said something stupid,
right.
You have an audience that likes what you do.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not so much about the guest or the subject. Sometimes it's just about you. They're like, oh, she's got another one. Let me hear what she said today.
Although I have to tell you, the subject is the only thing that keeps me going because like I I I think very much like you, I feel mission bound with my topic. In fact, if you had like I'm starting to do public speaking, and if you told me 2 years ago that would be something I'd consider, I would have laughed you under the table. But this I'm discovering how I feel like we really need to look at aging in a different way, in an essentially different way than we
Yes.
have over so many years that, okay, yeah, I'm 50, I'm going to be 53 next week. You're in your lower 60s. but we still have so much stinking time ahead of us.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to do.
For our past generations, yeah, they'd maybe stayed at the same job for forever, and then the retirement was like, whew, retire. Yes, that was the big goal for everybody, right? For so long, but people were not living as long. And it's just, man, if I can stay healthy, I just want to keep going for as long
Yeah,
as I
just
can.
absolutely. I think that in the United States, we still have an issue with aging, you know,
Uh-huh.
from, finding a job as someone, if trying to find a job at 64, I'm not sure I'd be able to find a job because people look at that now.
I've
But
felt unemployable since about the time I was 40, to be
yeah.
honest. I'm serious because
Yeah.
and it goes back to because I was an actress. Um, I have a theater degree, first of all. How useful is that? Um, you know, Secondly, all the job skills that I picked up were just from survival jobs, but that's how I picked up administrative skills and working in an office and all that stuff. But it was never work I was passionate about. I
Right.
didn't have any deep industry experience doing anything with any kind of leadership function. But to do a regular admin job bores the bejesus out of me. I can
Of
do
course.
customer
Yeah.
service, but it's never going to pay me what I want to earn. And I just saw in the writing on the wall that there was nowhere for me to go.
Mhm.
As far as, like you said, you got out of the military and you had years of experience doing this communications work, but no degree. And people can't see past that to say, let's clearly you have the skills. Let's move past this whole thing where we need something on paper that says you have a degree, right? Um,
Absolutely. I also feel as though that, and I'm going to take a step further in, how our younger generations look at us. They're
mhm,
like, oh, you're old. What do
mhm,
what do you know? And I've seen other, you know, in other countries, how they revere their elders. And I'm just going to tell you this real short story. I was in Boston. I was living in Boston, and Boston doesn't have, what do you call a subway? They have what they call the T.
mhm.
Okay. Don't call the subway. They'll get mad at you. And, and it was very, very crowded, and there was a gentleman sitting in the row. He was Asian. I don't know what part of Asia he was from. An older Asian man got on. The doors open. He stepped up. The younger gentleman got up, helped him on, and gave him a seat. And I was like, holy crap. That was amazing. I
Mm,
mean, I remember that it made such an impression on me.
mhm.
And then, aging here in the United States, if you're over a certain age, you're like, yeah, okay, you're done. Bye. See ya. You
And that's the
know.
message too, that the story of aging is that it's, slow down, you're done, back off, go sit in your rocking chair, go take your meds, right? Like that whole
Right.
okay boomer thing,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you know what? The thing is as and of course, when I was young, I was looking at people that were 40 thinking they were ancient,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, they were only 40 probably.
Yeah.
Um, but I would just, I feel like that we never visualized this middle part of life. Like there's no milestones for it.
Right.
There's, when you're younger, you have a series of milestones that are societally, set up to think about and aim for. And the midlife is like this, the middle. It's this mush, right?
Yeah.
But what's beautiful in that is that there's all this opportunity for us to step into that middle and create something that
Yes, it
we
is.
want.
Yes.
If we can get in touch with our core and our values and go, okay, what do I want from here? And then think about how that's going to affect the people coming up behind us and how they view what's going to be possible for them as they get older.
Absolutely.
So
I
much
think we think
possibility.
of aging just differently. When I was much younger, um, I didn't want to get older. I thought that when you got into your 30s that you were close to death, like you were going to die.
Right.
I seriously did. I thought I was going to die young. I was like, and I remember I was in Germany and I was playing on this basketball team and there was a woman and I was 20. No, I was like 19 at the time and she was in her 30s. And I looked at her and I was like, oh my gosh, she's awesome. And that's when I started changing my mindset about stuff,
Yeah.
is
When
that,
you start to see what's possible in front of you, when you have role
yes.
models, right?
Mhm.
So that's so important to me to think about providing role models, like helping people see what you're doing.
And what you're capable of at that
Right.
age.
Yeah.
Now she wasn't old. She was in her 30s, but at
Sure.
19, 30 was, and I thought, wow, she's still playing basketball. She's doing okay. I get it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to keep it moving. I feel like I'm still like, I always tell people, I feel like I'm 15 in my head, even though my age. But I think that's what helps keep me young is I'm like, wow, that's cool. Let's go do that.
Yeah.
Not, oh, my arthritis, this, that, blah, blah, blah. I want to be able to just say, let's go do this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And
And
not
if I ever
having
do have grandkids, I want to be able to get out there and
and move
rock and
around
roll
with
with
them.
them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 I totally agree with that. That's the ultimate there. It's like you get to play with your kids, but you also get to be there and play with your grandkids. And that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And not and then too, I mean, one of my big I did have a role model. My Aunt Annie was she raised four boys. She started off as a nurse and I don't know how old she was when she did this, but she went back to school and she got her master's in computer science. And then she went back and she got her PhD in computer science. And then she ended up
Amazing.
teaching and she's in her 80s now and she's still working and she is still rocking it. And I just look at that and go, okay, that's what's possible. That,
Yes.
is to just keep exploring and she's still reinventing herself all the
Right.
time.
And you can. And that's what I love about is the possibility. What can happen? Yes, I've done a podcast. What's next?
Yeah.
Do I want to do public speaking? I think that would be cool. So I don't feel like anything's off the table.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of do I want to do it? So there's no, oh, I can't. I can. I may not want to, but that's okay. So what's freeing is the fact that you can pick and choose what you want to do and it's okay. You don't have your friends going here, oh, I don't know if you should do that. You're just like, yeah, I'm doing this. And being at a certain age, you're unapologetic. Before, you'd buy something and you're like, oh, why'd you buy that? And why'd you buy that color? And you felt like you have to explain. Now I'm like, well, why'd you start podcasting? Because I wanted to, because it was a passion for me.
Mhm.
You don't have to explain yourself anymore. And I love that.
Yeah. Mm, love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. What are you excited about that's coming up and how can people find you? Tell us a little bit about, where we can go for more Kat.
Sure. So my podcast is everywhere. If you go to Apple or Google, and my website is it's called podpage.com/sisters with a dash, then in and a dash, and then service. So sisters in service. If you type in Kat Corchado, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, reach out to me. I'm always looking for guests and, just to reach out and say hi to people. And I'm always on Clubhouse. Hello. You
Yep.
may see me in a room. You're like, hey, I heard you on a podcast. But yeah, so I'm just
I
having a
love
good time.
I forgot to tell you, this was something I wanted to bring up before we wrap up, is how excited I am to have had a chance to talk to you. Not having come from, I mean, my dad served after Korea, but I don't have a military family.
Mhm.
And I don't have a lot of connections to people in the military. And I am excited to listen to your podcast more to try to get an understanding of what that experience is. Because do you happen to know off the top of your head? I'm going to put you on totally. I know you said math isn't even your thing. Do you have any idea what are the percentages of people that who are like military families versus not? Do you know?
Well, I can tell you it's 1% of our population that actually serves. 1%.
I knew it was low. I had no idea it was that
Yes,
low.
it's 1%. And more women are getting out of the military. And so, you want there to be this kind of like you come out of school and you have somebody there to show you the ropes on how to do things. That's what I kind of want to do, is be this beacon, so to speak, where people say, hey, where do I go for this? And I don't know all the answers. I just don't, but I can find out for you. I know people who know what the answers are. And so to be able to say, here, go here for this, here's another resource here. Here's another resource here. And, there are a lot of men out there and a lot of men doing great things with organizations, but there's nothing like feeling comfortable enough to ask another woman who's been in the same situation, how do I do this? And saying, I got you. Okay, give me a second and I'll get back to you. And you get back to that person. They're like, oh my God, this worked out. Thank you so much. And it just gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling,
Yeah.
because you don't want any woman to get out of the military and feel like she's just dropped down that rabbit hole. That's an awful feeling.
Yeah.
It sucks. I don't want any woman to have to go through that.
It's great work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking time to talk to me. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, this wasn't time. This was fun. Can we keep going?
It was fun. I know.
2-hour podcast.
I looked up at the clock. I'm like, holy crap. How did all that time go by? That's not possible.
No, it's been fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Totally my pleasure. Well, there you have it. Isn't she amazing? Kat is just one of those people who is genuine and easy to talk to. So much to learn from her also. She's someone who doesn't let herself be stopped by obstacles. And she always finds a way to serve other people. Yeah. Be sure to check out her podcast, Sisters in Service. I'll have links where you can find more information in the show notes, of course. You can just go to latebloomerliving.com/podcast and click on the show notes for episode 64. Hey, if you had an aha moment or just enjoyed the conversation, please take a moment to share the episode or leave a review or a rating so other people can find their way here. That would be very helpful. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay safe and well. Talk soon.